Everyone, depending where you are. If you're in Toronto, it's morning. It's like 10:30 in the morning, around that. And if you're in Israel, it's about 5:30 in the afternoon. Uh, Good to be with everyone. I'm joined with Dr. Martin Sherman, who's a Mid-East expert on international relations. Writes a lot of articles, speaks out, informs people, gives lectures, lots of interviews, and was an advisor, in fact, to a previous prime minister in Israel. Uh, Let me just make sure that everything is going well with our connections. Just a moment, and then we'll get started. Okay. As I said, I'm joined with Dr. Martin Sherman, and we're going to be discussing the current war that's going on, the Israel-USA war against Iran. First thing, Martin, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay,
Been reasonably calm around my area.
right. Um, what is the mood right now in Israel since Khomeini was taken out? I mean, that should be major. I've seen some footage of celebrations in parts of Israel. Uh, Let us know what's the mood there. What's going on? This guy wakes up in the morning and wants Israel annihilated, and that's his ideology. His Islamic ideology is that the pinnacle of their faith is to destroy Israel and wipe out the Jews. What's the mood there right now?
Well, I think there was a certain amount of satisfaction, or a great amount of satisfaction, and perhaps even joy at his elimination. But I would caution it might be a bit early to break out the champagne. Yet we still see how this thing works out. Uh, people people might forget that. The predecessor of Nasrallah was someone called Masawi, and he was blown away by an Israeli helicopter, and everyone was pleased about that. And then we got Nasrallah in Lebanon, who was much worse. So although I'd be doubtful whether that would be the same scenario here. I think this was a major blow for the Iranian regime. So the mood here was pretty upbeat. But of course, this afternoon we got sad news about an Iranian rocket hitting a house, absolutely obliterating the house, and 9 people were killed. So, that sort of dampened the mood here. But
Right.
in general, I think people are pleased with the way the war was going and the way it's being conducted. We have to be naive to believe that it would be absolutely casualty free. But with all the rockets being fired at us, the fact that so few have got through is a testament to the efficiency of the Israeli defense system.
Also, the Israeli, I mean, the Mossad, the intelligence, to be able to know where Khomeini is, where the leaders of the IRGC, where the top officials are. I mean, that's unbelievable intelligence.
Yeah, Iran has been pretty porous to Israeli intelligence penetration for quite some time. And, if you remember the hijacking of the nuclear archive by Israel, which brought this huge trove of files on the Iranian nuclear system. If you remember the elimination of Fakhri Raza, the Iranian scientist, up until this day, no one really knows how it was done. When his car was mysteriously ambushed by a machine gun nest. So these Iran has been pretty porous to Israeli um, intelligence, particularly the Mossad, which probably stands in stark contrast to the Shin Bet in Gaza, because the Mossad was never involved in intelligence collection in Gaza. That was the purview of the Shin Bet, the domestic intelligence service or counterintelligence service. But
Right.
you're right that the Israeli intelligence successes have been remarkable in Iran.
Just, I had you on a couple weeks ago and we were discussing, what does it mean regime change in Iran? And you were explaining there's different ethnic groups uh, in Iran, and maybe the best thing is the breakup of Iran into multiple states, similar to Yugoslavia or Czechoslovakia, as the day after. And I'm just wondering if you could explain that a little bit. I know that some people don't want to hear that. I mean, I've heard that from some people, and that's fine. Uh, that people could voice that concern, but right now, I mean, we are discussing the issue, and there have been some other people who have been speaking about that. Mossab Youssef uh, uh, made a number of statements already, similar to what you said, Martin. But
I really don't understand why people are so apoplectic about it. Why is a unified Iran a condition for the existence of the universe? Uh, no one could envisage the breakup of Yugoslavia. And if you're on a grand scale, you could look what happened to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was Yugoslavia times a factor of many numbers. I mean, from the Baltic states to the Central Asian states, it also broke up. And I know that the people in Russia today who still dream of unifying the Soviet Union again. But again, you have both in Yugoslavia and in the Soviet Union, and now I think in Iran, you have a multi-ethnic country with concentrations or distinct concentrations of ethnic groups uh, under what was once a pan-national ideology, which failed. As communism failed in Russia, there was nothing to keep the different ethnic groups together. When Titoism withered out in Yugoslavia, there was nothing to keep these groups together. And now it looks like Islamism has failed in Iran. So why would Azeris and Kurds and Baluchis and Arabs feel comfortable being ruled by Persians, who only make up around about half the population, 50% of the population is Persian. So I mean, I can't understand why they think that a united Iran under Persian dominance is something that is essential for the existence of mankind.
right, President Donald Trump, he made a lot of statements, and one of them, he cast doubt whether the son of the Shah is capable of the day after being the leader of Iran, that he's not the unifying force. And he even said that he has somebody else in mind. I don't know what I mean, unless you've heard something,
No,
I don't know who he's referring to, or
I don't know of anyone else who's a prominent runner for taking over the reins of the government once this government falls. I have my own doubts. I think I voiced it in the last interview with you, whether he has the political juice to do it. And he's been abroad for what now, for 40 years, nearly half a century. So I don't know. I don't know what roots he has within in Iran. I think we talked about it before with when just before the fall of Saddam Hussein, there was a gentleman called uh, Ahmed Harabi, who was the flavor of the month in Washington, and everyone was presenting him as the next head of government in Iran to take over from Saddam Hussein. But once he'd also been abroad, he didn't have any real roots in Iranian society, not in the political sphere, not in the military. And when push came to shove, he sort of evaporated and melted away like the uh, the snow at the end of winter.
Right. Right.
And
With this war against the Khomeini Islamic Nazi regime in Iran, uh, they are the main backers of Hamas. And Hamas in Gaza has made it clear they're not going to disarm. They're not going anywhere. So there's the 20-point plan from the Trump administration. And Kushner made it clear that, we can't proceed to anything unless Hamas is out of the picture. With what's going on in Iran, going after Khomeini and all the leaders of the IRGC, and they want the complete collapse of that regime. Is this going to give more of an incentive for Israel to finally expel Hamas from the entire Hamas infrastructure from Gaza? How do you see it?
Well, I mean, I certainly hope so. I don't know how well the Hamas could fare without the Iranian cash infusion. I think if this regime falls and is taken over, at least in the beginning, by some less radical government, Hamas will have a big problem. But again, as I said with Iran, I think in Gaza, we're not taking it far enough because I've said this over and over again that the only way that Israel can ensure who rules Gaza and how they rule it is to rule it itself. And the only way it can rule it itself without becoming accused of being an oppressor of another people is to remove the other people from the confines of the Gaza Strip. And that should be much easier today than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically proportionately an insignificant problem. The entire population of Gaza is, I think, less than just a little above 1% of the total Egyptian population, who could easily settle them in the new capital that they're building. Look at Turkey. Turkey needs Sunni Arabs to offset the problem they have with the Kurds. And the Gulf states need workers, need people with professions. So there are probably some skilled Gazans, in all sorts of professions like plumbing or electrician or mechanics and things like that, or even farmers who could with hot house for farming that they copied from Israel that could be useful in other countries. But it's basically it's an insignificant problem in the terms of population and in
Mm-hmm.
terms of money needed. All it needs is a clear-eyed view of what Israel needs to do for its continued existence. And if it doesn't do that, Gaza will continue to be a problem. People say it'll be demilitarized. I would remind people that under the Oslo Accords, Gaza is supposed to be demilitarized. That was one of the key clauses in the Oslo agreements, but that didn't really stop them from arming and building a remarkable infrastructure for underground tunnels and overhead rockets and so on.
Right.
And I think it would be more than foolish to think that we can rely on a written agreement to keep the Southern Front quiet.
No,
And
100%, because as the Khomeini would wake up every morning, and the first thing he would think about is destroying Israel and the Jewish people. And Hamas is part of the Khomeini plan. That's how they are. They wake up in the morning to just want to kill and wipe out Israel and Jews. So absolutely.
The only thing that the Sunnis and the Shiites seem to agree on is the elimination of Israel, because
Yep.
that's the only reason why a Shiite regime would support a Sunni regime, just because of the animosity towards Israel. So
That brings a question, because what's going on in the past number of hours is Iran is firing on these Gulf countries,
yeah,
Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. The list goes on. They're firing rockets, missiles. Uh, they hit Dubai.
yeah.
So what? How does this affect that board of peace?
Well, I think you should listen to some of the US and the European television networks. This is something that's been brought up, and I think this is a bad miscalculation on the Iranian part, and it's undermined certainly any support that they may have around the world. It's something that's been a diplomatic miscalculation, I think. I mean, the truth is that they weren't really aiming at these states. They were aiming at American installations within the states, but they were still endangering people themselves, and they've been very upset about it.
Okay, but when they go after, for instance, a hotel in Dubai,
Yeah.
that's not a base.
No, yeah, well, who knows what they were aiming at? I mean, it's not as if these things are infinitely accurate.
Right.
So hitting a school or anything like that, and then I think it was a bad diplomatic move on the part of Iran, and I think it's cost them any potential support they might have hoped to garner. And
Right.
then yeah.
Right. That shows their obsessive, compulsive hate of Jews and Israel, that they're willing to yeah.
As Trump pointed out, for the last nearly 50 years, they've been saying death to Israel, death to America, and Israel was the small Satan and America was the big Satan. So it's sort of a logical continuation of the ideological hate.
Well, it's poor. It's, we're on the, Purim's happening in a day, and the story of Purim plays out, and Haman wants to wipe out the Jews, and we're not going to let them.
Yeah. Well, I hope in America the Democratic Party regains the plot as well, because it's so strange, how these people would support something which is the antithesis of the values that they profess to cherish. What happened to the Me Too movement when it comes to Iran?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. On a good note, the Prime Minister of Canada, excuse me, Mark Carney, he made a statement last night. He supports Israel, what Israel's doing against Iran. I mean, he went on record probably half a year ago, and he said, Muslim values are Canadian values, as he spoke to a radical before a radical Islamic conference. And right now, he made the statement that he supports what the U.S. is doing and what Israel is doing against Iran. So, maybe there's going to be something good finally happening in Canada. But, we'll take the statement. Well, thank you.
I think we could hope for regime change in Canada and
Yes.
and in Britain as well.
Oh, for
and,
sure.
and France.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes, we're good if the change happens in those countries. Definitely. Okay, so we're running out of time. Martin, last comments about what's going on right now. I know that there's a lot of rockets being fired, missiles being fired from Iran, and these are heavy missiles that could create a lot of damage. There was some damage in Tel Aviv. Beit Shemesh just was attacked as well. Israel has incredible defense systems, but you can't stop everything. Just give us an indication what the mood is. How is there unity in the country? How everybody, just walk us through it. So we're aware.
Where I live, no one seems to be really very stressed. We said they put a lot of faith in the aerial defense systems. There are a lot of reinforced rooms, some strong rooms that people can get to. So in general, I think considering there's a war and people having 100-kilogram rockets fired at them, things are I think remarkably calm. But let's see. It's early days. A war is something everyone knows how you started and no one knows how it ends.
Right.
But let's hope if things carry on on the present mode, things look reasonably optimistic as far as there's room for optimism during wartime. But it looks like it's the Israeli-American coalition is well on the way to achieving nearly all its objectives. You have this remarkable situation where the Iranian air defenses seem to be completely neutralized. The planes can do whatever they want, whenever they want. With the West Iran or East Iran, the Americans bringing along refuelers has helped the operations as well. So I think there's room for cautious optimism, and people are looking for this. Really could be a turning point in Middle Eastern history and perhaps in global history as well. I think that I think Trump gave a very stirring speech at the beginning of the campaign, and I think a lot of people will have difficulty finding counter arguments to that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Martin, thank you very much for joining us. We'll have you on many more times as we watch what's going on with this war against the Islamic Nazis in Iran. And thank God for the state of Israel. That's our future.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.